Right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of the Financial Life Podcast. With today's segment being Military Mondays, where I, your disgustingly handsome host, that sounds right, myself, like to promote and get out my fellow veterans. I've served in the Marine Corps. I have another veteran on today who's in real estate. Help promote us and what we do, so people know, hey, I do more than just real estate. Prior to this, I served my country. You know what I mean? All that fun stuff. So. Before we get into it, some of you may know, some may not know. I do help people out with certain things as credit, life coaching, some financial literacy. So if you'd like help in any one of those areas, please go to speakwithmatt.info. Again, speakwithmatt.info. No need to put an E-W. If you do, it won't work. But if you go to speakwithmatt.info, take you directly to my calendar, book a call with me. Today, it's free. And also co-authored a book called Born to Risk. And you kind of see it here. I'm one of the 40 people in the book. It's also done by another veteran, so this episode is sponsored by that as well. That being said, thank you very much, everybody. I'd like to welcome my guest, Dave. Dave, man, thanks for being on. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, no problem, man. That's what I do. So here's an important question I ask everybody. Dave, what branch of the military did you serve? It's very important.
I was in the Army.
Oh God, you Army guys everywhere. Oh, it's like
Army doggy.
There you go. What made you join the Army and not like any other branches? Like, what's story behind that?
Okay, so no joke. When I was like a little kid, I wanted to fly fighter jets, right? You know, I think
You saw
most
Top Gun,
wanted to
didn't
do
you?
stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Who didn't?
right, and I wanted to fly for the Navy too, actually. But
You're
that
like,
was
nope.
because my grandfather worked for the Department of the Navy. He was actually the head of the design team for the Los Angeles class submarine.
Oh wow, nice.
But on the civilian side, engineer, but
Okay.
cool stuff. So I was, grew up like with a little bit of Navy heritage, I guess. But by the time I was in high school, like my plan was literally to be a starving punk rock musician who lived in my parents' basement. And
Nice.
I had no intention of joining the military or anything until I was hanging out with some buddies one night, like the summer after my after I graduated, and my one buddy was like, hey, so I joined the Army, and I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, man, you should too. I was like, all right. So I just went the next day and I joined the Army.
So convincing. I joined the Army. You did? Yeah, you should too. All right, why not?
Yeah, well, 15 years later, like he got out after 6 years. I stayed in for 15.
15. Wow. Okay.
And it ended up being a huge defining part of my life. I loved it. I mean, I hated it, but
Yeah, that's
but I loved
military.
it.
There are really great moments and then like really shitty, and they're like equal in like intensity.
Exactly. So,
Nice.
but yeah, and to be honest, I got out for like family reasons and stuff, and I wouldn't have, I think, if the situation had been different, I'd have been happy to stay in for my 20. So.
Okay. So yes, you've been like kind of like a lifer. You're like, I'm gung ho, but family, and you're like, nah, let me just
Yeah,
press this.
pretty much.
Gotcha.
Pretty much.
So then from there, did you dive directly into real estate after that, or what was the journey to that?
No, I did physical security, worked on the Department of Energy Police Force for a while. And it was actually while I was there that I started doing real estate. I had a good buddy of mine who was doing real estate actually in North Carolina at the
Yeah.
time, and he made really good money, and he told me, he was like, dude, you got to do this. He's
It's
like,
like
it's
just
it's
like the
not
army.
hard. He's
Bro,
like,
it's real estate. Just do it. Okay, why not?
yeah, he was like, you just have to not be an idiot. He's like, because most of your competition is going to be idiots. And I was like, all right, that sounds good. Uh, and
You got the
so
easy sales pitches. You're like, okay.
yeah, that seemed like a good idea at the time. The
Yeah.
truth is, it's a lot more complicated than that, and
Of
maybe I'm betraying
course.
myself as an idiot. I don't
Right.
know, but
Yeah.
but no, it was very very easy to make money in real estate in certain places and certain times. And that'll always be true. At certain places, certain times, it will be very easy to make money in real estate,
Yeah.
and usually those times you get a whole bunch of people who get their licenses and do a handful of deals, and then things shift around, winds change, and all of a sudden those people fall flat on their faces, and they're all back to whatever it was they were doing before they got their licenses. And
Yeah.
so I'm proud to say I have now weathered a good ebb and flow. I've been in it for the better part of a decade now, and I know how to make money in all the different markets. It's not always easy, but there's always a way.
Right.
and military tenacity, right? Never quit, never give up, that whole thing. So
Nice. Yeah, I was gonna ask like how much of your military background has influenced you in this? You kind of mentioned it or just now, but has it been like a huge influence, or is it like a part, like a small part?
So to be honest, when I got into it, I was sort of grasping at straws to figure out like, well, how am I gonna sell this as being in any way related? Like if people ask, well, what's your experience? And I tell them I was in the military, you know what I mean? I like, I can use a Mark 19, right? Like
Right.
that's not very helpful in the real estate industry.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
but the reality is actually, there's a lot of things about having served in the military that end up being really beneficial to this job. One of the biggest things you do as a realtor is you are a liaison between a whole bunch of different people, a whole bunch of moving pieces.
Mm,
And having been an NCO, like that's you do that job a lot as an NCO. You know what I mean? Depending on where you work and what you do. But like there's lots of different situations where you can find yourself as a non-commissioned officer in the military, where your job is to basically make sure that like 16 different hands are all working towards the same goal, and they're all talking to each other through you.
yeah.
So I mean, it's a situation I've been in many times. I'm sure, anybody who held any kind of leadership position in the army, that was more complicated than just, make sure to show up on time. You probably ended up doing something like that. And because it's in a usually a very high stress, quickly paced environment, it makes you good at dealing with that kind of environment. So,
Yeah.
like things get very stressful sometimes in a home purchase, in a transaction. And it says right at the top of the contract in Maryland, it says time is of the essence for this contract. And it's like, well, it's not like it's mortars, man. It's just paperwork, right? So
Right, right,
it's,
right, right.
like people get stressed out about that stuff, but like it's having had some military experience helps there. But I get to sell the fact that, I was trained to negotiate by the United States Army Military Police School. I was trained in conflict resolution by, United States Army Special Operations Command. That's a big air quotes when I say that. It was like, yeah, it
Right.
was, I wasn't JSOC or anything. You know what I mean? I was under KPOC for a little bit. I was a civil affairs
Yeah.
soldier for a while, which is like they call it the wheelchair ramp into the special operations community. But no, but it's a great job. Actually, it's a really, really cool job. I don't want to undersell that at all. Like
Yeah.
those guys are super smart, and there were not a few people in that unit who had Green Berets, who'd come there after having done that. But yeah, I can legitimately say at least that like I was trained in international conflict resolution from like Special Operations Command paperwork at least, if nothing else.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And like that's a cool thing to be able to sell, and it has come in handy. It's like because to a lot of people, negotiating is just like, okay, well, I'm gonna start high and they're gonna start low, and then like whoever, like if we meet closer to my side, then it means I win the negotiation, right? But it's like, no, man, that's that worked in Aladdin, I guess, but it's not.
Aladdin.
Yeah,
Not
it's
in
not really.
Aladdin.
That's not the general gist of it. So
Right, right, right. Wow. So you got that definitely that you got a lot of experience in that and it trains because a lot of veterans, the military is it's starting. I think it's starting to get better, but the big problem is that you whatever job you do, and I always use examples like infantry, right? Marine Corps, we're all trained to be basic infantrymen, so you're trained to kill people legally. Let's be honest. But if you're an infantry and you want to be a teacher, how do you translate? You know what I mean? It's like they don't tell you you killing people does not translate well to you teaching kids. You
you
have to.
would be surprised, though. You
I
would
know,
be
but no, but
surprised.
but the way to do is that you have to look into the leadership roles, teaching all these things. So that's how you do it. Versus I was trying to kill people. No, no, no. You got to spin it a different way. But yeah, but it can be done. It's just that
Yeah,
like it's just that they don't tell you. You had to lead people, teach them this, train this, talk to them, all this stuff. Like you said, like working all these different hands to accomplish one goal. And
right.
that's a big deal. And you learn that, you know what I mean?
When I worked at the Department of Energy, there's a lot of veterans that worked there, and a buddy of mine that worked there had been a Marine Corps, armorer, right? So
Oh
he,
yeah.
like he worked in the arms room. He got out as a lance corporal. You know what I mean? He did 4 years. That was it. And so now he's here and he's got a clearance and everything. He's trying to get one of the jobs on the inside, wearing a suit instead of a uniform, and so he's looking through the USA jobs and all their KSAs and everything, and get the good government jobs. And it says it, and he's like he's looking at this. He's like, I don't know how the hell I'm gonna, justify my experience for this job. It says that, I should have briefed senior leader officials on security protocols. And he's like, I was just a freaking lance corporal, man. I was an armorer. I didn't do anything. And I was like, all right, you were a lance corporal armorer. At some point, I guarantee you, at some point, some butter bar came in there and tried to do something the wrong way and get away with it because he was an officer, and
Yeah.
you had to put him in his place, right? And he was like, "Yeah, it happened all the time." I'm like, "Then you have briefed senior
There
leadership
you go. Nice.
on
You
security
briefed them.
protocol,
It's like,
right?" Like
no,
that's
you
yeah,
can't do that. You got a problem with me? I'll get my other commanding officer and be like, nah. You know what I mean?
exactly.
Exactly. It's like you're right. And I like you said that there's that translation of this is what you did, but you're not seeing it in a different way where it's like that still counts.
Right.
That's a big deal. They don't tell you that. That's why someone like you, they come in like, what did you tell me? Everything you did. Okay, this job you're going for, great. Here's how we connect the dots. And then it makes sense. Now you're basically sellable to an employer
Right.
for that stuff, you know? And that's what, because what I was told going in, and I'm sure you were told as well, it's like, oh, you're sure the military, just put that in your resume and it's supposed to make you stand the fuck out and make you golden. Wrong. It
Right.
helps, but like you have to explain it. It's like the boost, but it won't keep you in the race. You know what I mean?
Right.
Things I things I later learned in my life. I'm like, well, I wish I told this earlier. Whatever. So do you work with a lot of like military veterans or those who are currently active in the military and military right now or no,
Oh
not so
yeah.
much?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. In fact, I got working a PCS right now. That's what I was just doing up in
Gotcha.
Westminster this morning. Was doing a virtual tour for somebody's PCS into Maryland.
Gotcha.
Um, but yeah, so yeah, I'd say probably about 50% of my business
Okay.
is veterans and VA loans and stuff like that. Lately, it's been a little bit less. My business partner and I, the KR group is the two of us. We've been working on getting a lot more like internet leads and stuff like that, and trying to branch out in that direction as well, which has been is it's nice. It takes time for that to build up, and it's like finally starting to catch up. So that's nice. But like in general, my organic stuff is probably about 50% VA.
Okay.
So yeah, I do a lot of VA loans. It's one of those things, man. If you got if veterans are coming to you asking for financial advice, they need to know about the VA loan. They really
Yeah,
need
the
to know
deal is
about
a
the
big
VA
deal.
loan.
I was gonna just ask you now, like, what advice would you give to like veterans and currently active duty personnel about the move in, real estate? Like, what advice would you give to them, and have
Okay.
you continually
Step
give?
number one, buy a Mustang or an F-150 at like 24% interest. Step number two, marry a stripper. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
And I was like, wait, what? Like, buy that? Yeah, and
Right. Once you've recovered from having done those things.
you're in military? Well, because you're approved. You're like, yeah. And you're like,
Right.
what
Yeah.
am I doing? Because you're getting
Yeah.
paid. They know that,
Yeah.
regardless or not.
Don't pay 21%
100%.
interest for a V6 Mustang, please. It's not worth it.
No.
Um, but yeah, no, while you're in, I'd say one of the biggest things that I was late taking advantage of. I wish I had taken advantage of it earlier. But that a lot of soldiers don't take advantage of is the TSP. Man, take advantage of the TSP. It saved my ass.
Mm.
When I ended up really needing it, it saved my ass. But but yeah, it's that's a great program. It's like military 401k, right? That's all it is.
Yeah,
But
that's what you get.
the TSP, the thrift savings program, I think that's what
I
it's
think
called.
so. Something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Ask your
TSP.
personnel section.
Yeah.
Yeah, ask
Google
your
if you
personnel
don't
section.
know. Remember, it's TSP. That's it.
TSP.
Right.
TSP. Too easy. I'd say right. Definitely use that. Um, and be careful with the military star card and all that. But when it comes time to buy a house, seriously, like the VA loan is such an incredibly undersold. I mean, like everybody, I guess the one thing everybody knows about the VA loan is that it's 0% down, right? Which is cool. That has a huge caveat attached to it, and that's that if you don't put anything down, then you are financing a much bigger number to begin with. So obviously your
Mm,
monthly payments are going to be higher, right?
right.
So even though you're getting a pretty great interest rate with a VA loan, because you're always going to get a great interest rate with a VA loan, you're going to get like the best available market rate at that time or close to it. Um, but that's even with that, if you're paying 20% more if you did than if you put 20% down, right?
Right.
So that is or yeah, sorry, that was you're not paying 20. I don't know if this is a math focused show or not. That wasn't
Doesn't
going
matter, but yeah,
okay.
it's
But
just basically come prepared to put something down that way in the back end things your payments aren't as high, saves you money and
Well, is worth
More
considering,
financially
but
sound.
you certainly don't have to. On the other
Yeah.
hand, and, my first broker when I first got into this job, my first broker, I won't give him away here, but he's a great guy. I loved him to death. Um, but he said shit, man. If I was a veteran, I'd take advantage of that because like it's just not your money if you end up having to default. I was like, wow,
That's a good point. I think about
one way to
that.
look at it.
I
I,
was
I'm
like,
not gonna I'm not
fuck.
gonna recommend that as advice or
Exactly.
anything, but I can also tell you that and we all have our critiques of the VA and their various different systems and how they work and stuff. But I got to tell you, man, all of my interactions with the VA from the home loan side of things, those guys are awesome. They're all veterans. First of all, every single person that I've talked to at the VA on the home loan side of things has been a veteran themselves.
Nice.
And they all like bought their homes with VA loans and they know them inside and out, and they just want to help out. So
Yeah.
that's cool too. But one of the biggest benefits to a VA loan that a lot of people don't understand is it comes with basically a rock solid contingency that has to be used when you put an offer in on a house. So it gives you a lot of protection and a lot of ability to back out and keep and not lose any money in the process of backing out if that becomes necessary. And I make a point to explain to everybody, it's like, look, you're entering into a contract, right? So like, don't get cold feet, right? That's not what it's about. But if there is some really legitimate reason why you need to get out of this thing, the VA does have your back more often than not. You kind of have to be like very clearly in the wrong for them to not have your back in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's so many other benefits to the VA loan that are not well enough appreciated. I think like I said, if I have any piece of advice to anybody who served in the military for at least 4 years and has honorable discharge, use your VA loan.
Right.
Definitely use your VA loan.
Yeah, I like that. You're second person that's spoken to me about the VA loan. I'm like, you were saying when you're ready, use the VA loan. I will definitely use it. It seems to be like very like, hey, we'll get you a house. Do you see any challenges right now with the current housing market for the veterans in active the military in the current housing market, or is VA loan pretty much like if they're able to find a house, first off, kind of smooths it out basically?
Yeah, so I can only speak for the markets I work in. I know, I mean, I understand general, like, aggregate data for the country at large, but
Yeah,
I can't tell you what's going on in like Little Rock or St. Louis or whatever, right?
of course.
So, but in Maryland and Virginia, where I work, in the greater DC area, um, the biggest thing that I'm concerned about here is just that this place has always been kind of, historically recession proof or at least recession resistant. And they've even I mean, the people who got hit the hardest in 2008, their houses are worth more now than they were in 2008. And but a lot of the market symptoms or the things that caused 2008 aren't in play today. Like there's a lot of those lending practices aren't legal anymore. Things
Right.
can't shake down the way they did. And not only that, but this incredible demand that we have now, it's not been caused by cutting the floor out on lending or anything or encouraging subprime loans. It's actually happening because there just aren't enough houses to sell. There are way more people who want to buy houses than there are houses to sell.
Right.
And that problem is gonna take time to fix no matter what, right? Because the developers have to build more houses,
Yep.
and there's a million political reasons why they're not always going to be building the right houses, right, or in the right places or whatever. So like and then it's not like we're gonna just start having fewer people. I mean, we had a pandemic and that didn't even do it.
Nope.
So
Yeah. It's like, nope. More
right, yeah,
people. Like what
still
it is.
still not enough houses.
Life will
Right.
find what life's like. Wait, there's death. We need. Yeah. Yeah. Let's problem. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. You know what I mean?
Right, right. So yeah, I mean, at this point, I think the biggest problem for anybody is the prices are just gonna keep going up. It's just gonna keep getting harder. And anyone who's waiting for like rates to come down, especially if you're a veteran, man, don't wait for rates to come down. Just buy the freaking house.
Mhm.
Get in there now, because if rates come down later, you can refinance. But even, like, you can't just suddenly have paid less for the house, right? Like you can't
Right.
just undo that. So you might as well control the thing you can control, and then
Okay.
when you have the opportunity to refinance later, if that's what you need to do, then do it. But getting in there now, it's like, especially in this area, I tell people, I mean, you're around here, right?
Well,
DC area?
well, I guess Winchester, Virginia is still considered northern.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's no though,
It's
right? I
not
guess
really,
it's
but
not really
I'm
no
like,
though.
I'm not like in,
Yeah,
Morgantown, West
but
Virginia.
you're from
That's
here.
different. Yeah.
Yeah, you're from here. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so you know the area at least. But yeah, so like I tell people, Kensington, right? Kensington, Maryland. If you bought a house in Kensington in the 1960s,
Oh,
right?
dear God.
Going way back there, right? You probably paid what, 50, $60,000 for it, right?
Yeah.
If you held on to that house ever since. You've been through recessions, depressions, bubbles, bursts, crashes, bear
Wars,
markets. You've been through
pandemic.
every single bad thing that can happen to an economy, and your house is worth almost $1 million.
Ooh.
So
Oh,
yeah,
it
I like
hurts.
that's, but I mean, if you think about it that way, it's like, okay, you can try to time the market, right?
Yeah.
You can try, and sometimes people get lucky, right? Sometimes people get lucky with, timing the market in the stock market. Sometimes they sometimes they get lucky with Doge, right? Or whatever. You know what I mean?
Dogecoin.
Right? But
It's
like,
going to the moon. I'm like,
yeah,
whatever.
but the common wisdom is always like get in and hold, right? And that's, whatever you're talking about. The same thing with real estate, man. Get in, and if you're worried about it, just hold. Because the other thing in 2008 is you had people who were getting loans that they probably should never qualified for in the first place, and then those loan amounts would go up
Oh,
as they lived in the house longer. That's
oh,
not what's happening today. Today, people are putting, a lot of this crazy price action came from people putting huge amounts of cash down,
oh,
and
really?
then so they've got, they might have, and that plus the incredibly low interest rates that we were seeing in like 2020 and 2021,
Yeah.
that created a situation where you've got people who are in, $600,000 houses, and their mortgage is like $2,000 a month. They can afford that, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And they're not gonna start, suddenly. It's like just because everybody sees the prices go up, they're like, oh no, it's gonna be 2008 again. Everyone's gonna start foreclosing. Why would, like, what, in what reality are you gonna, be foreclosed on when you're paying a third of what you should be paying for that house? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like the biggest thing you did wrong there was just liquidate some cash reserves, but ultimately look where it got you. Maybe that wasn't a bad decision after all. So, right now is not 2021. That was the right time to buy. That
Yeah, it's like
right
you're
time to
good
buy
now.
was
You sit on that.
2021.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
They were so low because I talked about it with people before. Like the rates we have now are really what the rates were normally back in like definitely have heard like the 90s, maybe the early 2000s. And because I remember someone was telling me a guy bought a store where it was, he said, man, like these rates nowadays aren't expensive. Like they only are because they were so low. We were
Oh yeah.
spoiled. Like back in like 90s and 80s, I think a good rate to get a house was what, like 10% or something like that. But
I
the
was worse
price
than
was
that.
lower.
My
Yeah.
parents bought their place in 1984, I think,
Mhm.
or 85, and I think it was like 19% interest or something like that. So yeah, I mean, you're never going to see 2.25 again. Like, you shouldn't. That was irresponsibly low. That was not good for the economy in the grand
It,
scheme of things. It's
it,
great for the people who snagged it. I mean, I know at least one guy who got a sub 2% rate,
ooh,
and that's, yeah, like it was like 1.875 or something like that, or 1.975.
I'd
I
be
forget
like,
what it
you
was,
don't
but
sell that house for shit. You hold
yeah,
on to that
you
stuff.
just hang on
Never,
to it,
don't,
man.
just don't ever give it up. Nope.
Seriously, seriously. And I mean, like hey, I got a good rate on my place. It wasn't the best rate I could have gotten. I didn't time it perfectly, right?
Yeah.
But I was happy. Yeah, and so that makes it tough too. It's like a lot of people now, they're like, okay, well, they don't want to sell.
Mm,
So now we have the same situation again with more people who want to buy than there are houses to sell. So,
mm.
again, it's like, if everything's gonna just keep being competitive, why wait for the prices to go up?
Yeah. So let me ask you this, and we're kind of going this direction. One of the loan officers we're talking about before we started this, she's down in Florida, and she has this feeling because what happened with them, what's going down there, and where well, the
Yeah.
country as a whole economically, it's like we're just not a good place overall. It sucks. Some places are good, but like overall, it's like it sucks, right? And she thinks, and I forget what she based on, but based on I don't know what it was. She said just based on how people were with the hurricane, they had two that came through. She's thinking like next year we're gonna have a recession, and she's like, hey, it'll be good. It'll be a good time to buy a house. That's what she believes and feels. What are your thoughts on that? Like, or do you think that this will just continue until at
I
some point
mean,
things it'll come down at some point next year or years later?
if I had a crystal ball, I wouldn't be selling real estate. But
Right.
my my contention for some time has been, when people were talking about a crash coming and everything, I'm like, I'm not saying there isn't a crash coming. I'd kind of frankly be surprised if there wasn't. I think the Fed recently has done a better job of avoiding a crash than I thought they were going to. I sort of figured we would have been feeling it a lot worse now. But what I've been saying the whole time is it's not going to be the real estate market that crashes. It's
Okay.
gonna be the U.S. dollar. You know what I mean? It's gonna be, I mean, what BRICS is getting bigger. They're
Yeah.
looking at admitting more countries now, and they're there's talk of them adopting the yuan as their reserve currency or whatever, and China obviously has been pushing for that, and so is that all gonna happen? Like, do I think World War III is like right down our throats? No,
Yeah,
no.
that's a very hard no. It's like,
Right. Yeah. No,
no.
I don't, but
More like I hope not, because I'm like, please no. Can we just narrowly avoid that and just
if I was China, all I'm saying is if I was China, I would wait until the left and right in America were in a fierce debate about what to do about elections when, elections are happening when the entire Southeast United States is underwater. They're going to start arguing really, really bitterly about that. That's a really good time to invade Taiwan.
I would have to agree.
That'd be a grade A time to invade Taiwan.
That's
So
what you
I,
do,
we'll
man. You let
we'll
your enemy,
see.
you let your enemy fight itself and go, just wait and go, all right, cool now. And it's
Yeah,
sad. That's where we're at. It's like, yo,
right.
people. And I not to say this, but I feel and I kind of agree with people, and I think Joe Rogan said this too, not to make this into a political thing. But he's very optimistic, and even he said more than once, like he thinks it's going to take something like horrible for us to go, wait, oh shit, let's work together. Like basically like another September 11th where everyone's like, oh shit, we're all human. Let's be united for once versus
Well,
everything just
what's wild is what's happening in the Southeast right now is it should be effectively that. I mean, it's they're calling it the worst natural disaster that's ever struck the United States. So, and I didn't mean to draw all the way from your
yeah,
original
yeah,
question
yeah, yeah.
either. I need
But
to come back to that.
it's all tied
Um,
in with real estate, the market, the
yeah,
country, man.
the
It's
point
like,
is, yes, exactly. It's like all of that is going to matter. But in the grand scheme of things, people are going to need places to live.
yep,
Um, and if you look at all of the things that are problematic right now with that, they're supply problems. They're not demand problems, they're supply problems.
yeah,
And supply problems get fixed one of two ways: by increasing supply or by reducing demand. How do you reduce demand for housing? Oh, maybe World War III will do that, but otherwise, like you got to increase supply, right? So
yeah,
that until we can increase supply, housing prices are not going to just start plummeting. It's just not going to happen. They might stay stagnant for a while because people, in fact,
okay,
for a little while there, they were staying pretty stagnant. They're on a slow climb again. It's starting to get, it's a little competitive right now. It's not like super competitive like it was.
hmm,
It's a little competitive at the moment. And I just sort of see it going back and forth between that for the foreseeable future. If things get real bad economy wise, it's just gonna, stagnate, push left for a long time,
right.
and it's just going to kind of sit like that. You might see little dips here and there, but anytime that there's any kind of, I mean, like okay, the I used to be a big Star Trek nerd, right? And there was the Ferengi or whatever, and they taught
I
their
wouldn't. I'm not familiar, but
okay, they're the ones with the
explain,
big ears,
enlighten
and
us.
they're like traders or something. I forget. I don't know. It's been a really long time. It was like when I was a little kid. I watched this stuff, but I remember them saying that like war is good for profit and peace is good for profit or whatever. Like war is good for the economy, peace is good for the economy, and like that's true, right? So if you're in certain industries, you're gonna get hurt real bad when peace breaks out, right? And if you're in certain industries, you're gonna get hurt real bad when war breaks out. But in general, like there's things that people just need all of the time, and one of those is a place to live. So like if I can see things stagnating, and I can see little dips here and there. We had one not that long ago. I guess several months ago there was a little bit of a dip in most areas, and that's the other thing is it's location dependent too, because
Yeah,
some places I know I've been hearing that out in like sort of the Southwest, there are certain areas that really have been seeing kind of a reversal and seeing housing prices go down out that way.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you where exactly. I remember hearing that from like other realtors and Facebook groups where we all
Yeah.
chat and stuff. People are saying there
Yeah.
are some areas that are getting, that are starting to see that. So I don't want this to be, my advice no matter where you are in the country, right? If you're a veteran in an area where you're watching housing prices go down, you're like, what the hell is this guy talking about? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
Consult a local professional because I don't know anything about your market, but
Exactly.
but at least here, like this is I feel very, very comfortable saying very confidently I can say that I think things are gonna just kind of stagnate at worst, um,
Okay.
and probably continue to go up. So
Gotcha. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it from a Dave. And he gets it wrong, you come after his ass, not mine. He said I asked the question, you know. This housing market has been crazy, man, because it's just like it went from the demand still going up. I'm like, yo, at some point, it won't be this way forever. And there will be a day when we'll look back on this and go, remember the housing market went from like super low rates to no one was like, it just became a clusterfuck basically almost. It's like rates have come down, prices haven't, but now I'm starting to see more influx of people come in prior to that as well on my end with things. It's crazy, man. But that's life. You know what I mean?
yeah. Well,
So
and that's the biggest hurdle that comes from that for I find for most people because the other thing is like especially in the veteran community, a lot of guys got government jobs, when they get out of the military, right? And so they're gonna have cola and or maybe they're on the law enforcement scale or maybe they're getting like hazardous duty pays and stuff and they're getting some tax-free benefits. They're getting maybe relocation programs to help them out and stuff. So they're not all that worried about monthly payments.
yep.
The problem tends a lot of times to be cash on hand.
Mm,
And so, not to keep beating a dead horse, but the less money you pay for the house in the first place, the smaller the percentage is, right?
yeah.
Um, a percent is a percent, but that changes a lot depending on whether you're buying $100,000 house or $1 million house. Um,
Yep.
but another thing people uh, don't often consider is it is going to take some cash to get into a house regardless. It's something that a lot of people aren't, especially veterans, they hear zero down and they're not always prepared for. Now the reality is I've gotten people into houses where they paid nothing, where they literally just, showed up to settlement and, we even got their parking validated, right? Even on a handful of occasions, I've had somebody get a check at settlement. Like my buyer gets a check for, $120 at settlement or something, right? And usually that's just because like we held a little much in the water escrow or something and it's getting returned to you in advance
Okay.
or
Wow.
something like that, right?
Okay.
But generally, like so it can be done, but especially when you're in a more competitive environment too, it can be you want to plan on bringing at least 3 to 3.5% of the purchase price to the table for your settlement costs.
Right.
And with VA loans there are certain things that you're not allowed to pay. But those things don't usually come out to a huge amount of money either. Um, there, but so there's going to be some savings in there for being a veteran. But in general, you're still going to want to bring anywhere from 3 to 3.5% of the purchase price as your closing costs,
Yep.
unless you're in a non-competitive environment or you're looking specifically for kind of like fixer-uppers and stuff. In which case, we can usually negotiate something out of the seller for you to cover some of those costs.
There you go.
But yeah, that's one people don't. Oh, and the VA funding fee is the other one a lot of folks aren't aware of. There is a funding fee, and in fact, I should look it up right now because it just went up last October. Oh, so I guess a year ago now. I should have
I
it
didn't know there was
memorized
a
by now.
funding
But
fee. Learn
but yeah,
something
the
every day.
VA funding fee is basically that's you paying the VA for taking the risk, right, of backing your loan.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, I don't know. I assume your people who watch your channel are probably fairly financially literate.
But
So
you
they're
would think
probably,
some are, not
or
everybody,
they're
but
watching
still.
it so that they can become financially literate.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
fair enough.
Exactly.
Um, okay, so when you take out a VA loan, I'm talking to the veterans here, you're taking it out from a regular bank, right? You're taking it out from, whatever local lender you're using or regional lender you're using. Maybe you're taking it out from a big bank, USAA or Navy Fed or something like that.
Yeah.
I have my opinions if you want to know. Ask me one on one. But whatever it is, you're not taking it from the VA, right? The Department of Veterans Affairs is not handling your loan. They are backing your loan to they're going to the bank and saying, hey, instead of making this guy put 20% down, because that's your skin in the game, right? That's so
Right.
that, they make you put 20% down so that if you buy the house and then just never make a single payment and just like squat in it for months and months and months, and then they have to evict you and then turn around and sell it as a foreclosure, they just don't want to get left holding the bag. So
Yeah.
that 80% loan to value ratio is what they want so that they feel like they're covered, right? And so
Right.
the VA comes in and says, well, don't make the veteran put in that 20%, just give them the loan for the full amount. And if they default, we will pay you. You know what I mean? We, the VA, will pay if the veteran defaults, we'll make up the 20% difference, right? Or 10% or whatever it is. So, because they negotiate it out with the bank so that they get treated better than your average Joe would.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but that's effectively what's happening. So the VA does collect a fee from that, and that fee can be rolled into your loan, so you can finance it, but then you are paying interest on it as well. And that fee is, let's see, hang on, I got it right here on the va.gov website. Um, yeah, so the first time you use it, your VA funding fee is going to be 2.15% if your down payment is zero or is less than 5% of the purchase
Gotcha.
price. If you put a 5% or more down payment, it'll be 1.5%. So the funding fee goes down. If you do a 10% or more down payment, is 1.25%. So it goes down again. And then
Okay.
after your first use, that actually goes up a little bit each time, or for the less than 5% as well, it goes up to 3.3%. So that is that's money that a lot of folks just aren't expecting to have to spend, and then they come in and you can, like I said, you can roll that into your loan, so you don't necessarily have to have that cash up front.
Right.
But then if you roll it into your loan, you're
Yeah.
financing that too. So what I suggest is, if you are out or you're getting out, or whatever, file with the VA for disability and register what's called an intent to file, right? So this is not medical advice, this is not legal advice or anything. This is me talking as a realtor
Right.
and as a veteran. But the reason I say that is that, okay, so look, you file for disability with the VA, it's what, 2 years, 18 months, something like that before you hear back from them. And then you get, like, hey, congratulations, we denied you for everything but this one little thing, and now you have to appeal it and start from the
You're
beginning
tempted
again, right?
disabled. It's like, oh, okay.
Right. So
Right.
it's like, okay, well, this dude's telling me to go do that first before I buy a house. Great. I'll be buying, but he's telling me to buy now, right? How the hell am I
Right.
going to buy? That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, but that's what the intent to file comes from. The reason I say this is, if you have a disability rating through the VA, any rating at all, is my understanding, or at least 10% or better, but I'm pretty sure it's any rating at all. I don't even think it's 10% or better.
Okay.
Um, the funding fee is waived. There's no funding fee.
Oh,
You don't have to pay the funding
wow.
fee at all. And that can be retroactive if you do it a certain way. So that's where this intent to file comes in, right? So you file with the VA and you submit your stuff, and then it's like years before the stuff comes back. But the date that you submit is the date that they're going to pay you to, right?
Hmm.
Well, let's say you're not ready to file yet. Let's say you're on terminal leave still, you're out processing, or you've got just a million things on your plate and you're trying to buy a house. You know what I mean? Like, you're not trying to go to start stacking up all your doctor's appointments and digging through your NPRJ and all that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So you register this intent to file with the VA, and the day that you register that becomes the back date, and you have 1 year from the day that you register that to submit your actual filing, right? And to get your doctor's appointments in, and find all
Yeah.
your medical records and dig all that stuff up and put your actual application together and submit it. And as long as you do it within 1 year of the day that you registered your intent to file, it will be backdated to the day that you register your intent to file. So let's say you're about to buy a house and you're like, yeah, man, like, I was gonna do the whole disability thing. I got bum knees and bum back and bum neck like everybody else in the military. But I'm like totally not ready to do that. And I do need a house, you know what I mean? Like, I gotta buy something because my job starts next week or whatever. Like, all right, cool. We can get you into a house, register your intent to file today. And then we buy you a house. You can, finance your funding fee or pay it in cash or whatever you want to do. And then 2, 3, a million years from now, whatever, the VA approves you for disability, not only do you get back paid to the date that you registered your intent to file, but you bought your house after the date that you registered your intent to file, which means your funding fee gets returned to you. It's not automatic. You got to ask them for it, but it does. It
Yeah.
gets returned for. It gets returned to you. So
Oh, wow, dude. I didn't know you. I didn't.
yeah,
Wow.
it's little tricks like that are worth knowing for sure. I'll give you one more, and
Okay.
this is one that I recommend. If you got anybody who's in dire straits, right? Like any veteran homeowners, you already do own a home, you used a VA loan to buy it, and the last few years have not been kind to you, like they have not been kind to so many people,
Right.
myself included in a lot of ways. So if you find yourself in that situation, you own a home, you're a veteran, you own a home with a VA loan, um, and you're worried about getting foreclosed on, contact the VA in your state, and let them know what's going on, and be straight up with the VA, and tell them exactly what's going on, and ask them what they can do for you. Because in some cases, I cannot speak for them. I can't tell you exactly how this works or anything, but I know that in some cases, at least, they will like run interference for you and put things on hold and get you more time. In other cases, they can potentially even end up buying the loan from the bank and reissuing it to you at better terms, at terms that are basically intended to make sure that veterans don't end up homeless. So it is
Wow.
really worth looking into. Those things are not, you can't just like walk in and take advantage of that kind of, you can't just be like, oh man, I want that incredibly good loan, right? Like you have to, your life has to suck really bad first, basically. You have to earn it that way. But but there are all sorts of different things that the VA has available to try and help out, to make sure that veterans don't end up homeless, and if they use the VA loan to buy a home. So they're such like incredibly good products for so many different reasons. If you're a veteran and you're not considering using a VA loan, come talk to me or talk to a lender, and
Yeah.
let them change your mind. There's there's limits, right, on how much you can use. People assume, okay, well, I use my VA loan, I can't buy another house now. That's not true. There is a limit on benefit amount. It's a dollar amount. And until you hit that limit, you can still continue to open up a second VA loan.
Wow.
You can, they understand you got to pay one, you got to sell one in order to open the other one sometimes. We can work with that. You know what I mean? So whatever reason you're thinking like, oh, maybe the VA loan isn't right for me, come talk to me first. I could probably change your mind. The VA loan is one of the best benefits you get for your service to our great country. It's worth taking advantage of. It really, really is.
Mic drop. Dude, this has been eye opening. Wow, I didn't know those little like real estate hacks you could use with your VA loan benefit. Wow, man, wow. I'm so glad I had this recorded. I'm like, if you're in Maryland, the DMV, and you need help with the VA loan, come to Dave. Come to Dave. Just
Definitely.
go to him. But
Dave
anyway,
Rouse, the
Dave,
KR Group of Century 21 Redwood.
there you go. I was gonna say, thanks for being on, man. It's been a great episode. I learned some stuff, so it's been awesome. How can other veterans and people who aren't veterans reach out to you?
So you can find me on Facebook, Dave Rouse Realtor, or the KR Group of Century 21 Redwood Realty is my group. My business partner Matt Kukuka is on there too. If you find any of us on any of our social media, they all link to one another. Matt he's our media and marketing guy, so he's better with all the tech stuff than I am. But I have a QR code. I'll see if I can send it your way or something, or give you
Yeah.
there's a links link, I think it's called. It's a links. Yeah, it's a terrible name, but apparently if you open that, it gives you all our different all
Okay.
our different social media stuff. So I'll forward it to you. But yeah, just look me up on Facebook. That's probably the easiest way.
Cool, man. Awesome. You heard it, people. Reach out to Dave. Or it's like to tell people, buy his shit. Just buy his shit. Just buy it from him, okay? Just buy
I
his
wish
stuff.
I wish I had an inventory of houses to sell you. That would be great.
you,
But
you, 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 you be like, how much you want for this house? Huh? What do you need?
yeah, I'll just open up my garage. I got a whole bunch of houses stuffed
Own
in
houses. If you're a veteran, I got you. If you're not, we're gonna have a conversation.
Definitely. Well, hey, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on. I hope somebody was able to learn something, and I could save some veterans some money, or help out somehow, because that's what I love to do.
I'm gonna push the episode out to veterans in the area and anyone that's looking to move. Like, listen to this first, then go to that. So
Awesome. Hey, well, if we can do that, I'll plug this. I'm actually my broker is not allowing me to advertise this yet, and probably never will. But so but we have a really awesome program for veterans.
Okay.
And we're actually just started officially doing the second part of this program, the pilot program. We've been running since some of the commission stuff changed with the NAR ruling. And so we initially had only been doing this for veterans who already owned a home and wanted to sell it and buy a new home. But now we have a version of the program for first-time home buyer veterans as well. I can't give you the details of it, but you're not going to find a better deal. You're just not. So hit me up if you're interested.
Looks like I moved back to Maryland now. Back to Gaithersburg I go.
Hey, I sold a house in Winchester to
Oh,
a
you did?
veteran.
Okay,
Yeah,
oh,
just a
Winchester.
couple years
Hey,
ago.
you know
Yeah,
what?
it's
all
a
good.
hike, but worth
Yeah,
it
it
for a good
is.
buddy too.
It's a hike. It's a nice area, but it isn't Montgomery County. Not the
Yeah.
Winchester.
The traffic is better in Winchester for us, trust me.
Oh, that's a whole different podcast. It is.
Yeah.
The problem in Winchester, I'll say this. They like to put a stoplight and then like, oh, 5 years later, stoplight. And another one,
Yeah.
stoplight. I'm like, you're creating traffic that you don't need to have. But whatever. I don't control the funds. Anyways, man, thanks for being on. Appreciate it, bro.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.